Hello, my name's Angela Nicholson, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to restore a damaged, dusty photograph like this one. First step is obviously to open it in Photoshop. Now going to zoom into the image so we can see what we've actually got to tackle. If you hold the Shift key down you can scan around quite easily. Straight away we can see there's lots of bright speckling that's going to have to be dealt with. There's a few scratch marks and some creases which are fairly ugly, but the most noticeable thing is this brown mark here which looks like it's probably a burn or something. So we're going to have to deal with that. I think the best way to deal with the damage is to copy over it using a section of the face from over here. So I'm going to use the lasso tool just to roughly select a suitable part of the image, and we need a bit of face and we need a bit of hair. So just draw around it and then we can copy and paste, edit, paste, and then obviously we need to transform that or flip it so that it's the right way around. Now we need to move this section into the right area, so I'm just going to drag it across and just place it fairly roughly in the right area. The next step is to get this bit of the image looking the right shape, so I'm going to use the transform tool under edit and go down to transform, and I'm going to use distort. So we just want to pull the sides in to start with to make that match up with the side of the face. Perhaps narrow the chin very slightly, and already it's looking quite good. We just need to pull that down. That's it. Lips are matching up quite well. There we go. That's looking a lot better already, so I'm just going to select this tick box and that'll save it. I want to help this merge in a little bit more, so I'm going to create a layer mask. Just drag that down to the layer mask box, and now with the brush tool selected I'm going to paint over it to reveal the background layer. I just paint very gently. It doesn't really matter about the brown because I'm going to deal with that later. I just want to reduce the opacity a bit so we have more subtle gradation. You can keep varying the opacity and keep going over, but it's that harsh edge I'm trying to get rid of. Keep painting round. Just keep building up the effect to get the look that we want. There we go, it's starting to look quite a bit better. There, I think that's almost there. Okay. Before we tackle any more on this image, I'm going to create a duplicate of the background. So just click on the background in the layers palette and then use layer, duplicate layer. Now I'm going to merge our patch with our duplicate background. So select both by holding the Shift key while you click on the layer above. And then we'll go to layer, down to the bottom to merge layers. I think the next thing we need to look at are these nasty crease and scratch marks, and I think the best thing to use here is the patch tool, which is just under the healing brush. Just select that and we just draw roughly around the scratch and then drag that to an area which seems like a good duplicate. There we go, it's just matched it in nicely, and you just go along here and just do a little section at a time if you like. It usually helps to keep things, keep track of what you're doing. And sometimes you want to be a bit more specific about where you're making your selection from, and then it's helpful to use the healing tool. So in this one, with this one you actually select the area you're going to copy from and you hold Alt, click, and then just make the repair. It's looking a bit better. And just go along here. You see it's quite a useful tool for merging in harsh edges as well. The spot healing brush is quite useful as well because you don't actually have to sample from it. It just automatically merges areas in. So there we go. It's quite useful for just patching up little bits, little spots. And just pan up here, there's some bigger areas up here. CS5's content aware fill is quite useful for repairing large problems, and all you do there is just draw roughly around the area that's an issue, just quickly, and then go to Edit, Fill, and you can see that Content Aware is selected. OK. You see it's sort of done a reasonable job, but it's just a few patches we need to go around again. There we go. And Edit, Fill. There we go. Now I'm going to carry on doing this and making the repairs, and I'll come back to you when I've finished. Now I've dealt with most of the major scratches and marks here, but there's still quite a lot of dust which is giving this bright speckling. This is easiest dealt with using the dust and scratches filter, which is under noise here. Now as you can see straight away, it's dealing with the noise, it's softening the image a little bit, so it's worth scrolling around just to see how much detail you're losing in the important areas like the eyes. You can increase the radius, which obviously has a more dramatic effect, and you can increase the threshold, which limits the effect slightly. That's working quite well there. Let's just scroll around. It's worth playing with the figures to see what sort of result you're getting. Keep the radius as small as possible to retain as much detail as possible. I think that's looking pretty good actually. It's managed to retain quite a lot of detail. Switch it on and off. You can see that noise is being hidden quite nicely. So all you need to do now is to click OK, and that's the filter accepted. If there are any areas where you feel you've lost a bit too much detail, you can always apply a layer mask to remove the filter effect. Just open the layer, drag it down to the layer mask option, and then paint in the background where you need it. So that it's bringing back the dust, but it's also adding a bit of detail. In this instance, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to just leave it where it was. So you can, if you've made a mistake, just cover it back over by painting in the foreground again. I finished spotting and repairing in the image, but now I want to deal with the brown coloration, and I'm going to do that by making the image monochrome again. And I'm going to do that with an adjustment layer using the channel mixer. So just check the monochrome box and just play around with the numbers until you get the sort of result you're looking for. Should come up to about 100%, but don't worry too much about that. I think that's about right. The image is looking a lot better than it was, but I want to finish by giving it a sepia tone. So first we need to merge the layers. So you go to Flatten Image. Once you've merged the layers, you're able to make the image a grayscale. Just discard the colour, and then you can go back and bring up the duotone option. Whoops, there we go. Just select the duotone from drop down and then click in the box to find a suitable colour. Now some people do go for yellow when they're creating a sepia, but I tend to go for a brown. Quite like that one, so let's go with that. Now you could just stop there, or if you like, you can click in here or click in here and adjust the colours to get what you're looking for. I'm just going to reduce the opacity of the black in the mid-tones a little by dragging the centre of the curve down, and that'll reveal some of the brown in these areas just a little bit more. There we go. But you can play around and get the result you're looking for. When you're happy, just click OK and you're all done. So there we have it. This image has faded quite badly and has got a strong colour cast, but it's relatively easy to adjust. First step is to duplicate the layer so you preserve your original. Scroll up to the top and duplicate layer. Now it's always worth checking what autocolour can do for you, so go to Image and Autocolour, and that's helped, but it's still looking a little bit faded. I'm going to use a couple of adjustment layers to see if I can get this image looking a little bit better. The first one I'm going to use is to get the bit of contrast back, so I'm going to use curves. And it's a little bit bright in the highlights, so I'm going to bring the brightness down quite a bit. Now already that's had a dramatic impact and it's improved the background no end. Maybe don't need it quite so dark there, but I think that's looking pretty good. Now to tackle the colours, I'm going to use a colour balance adjustment layer. Now it's not too bad already, but I'm going to give it a little bit more red, maybe a little more magenta and a little bit of yellow. And you just play around with the colours. You can also revisit the curve, you can change the opacity until you get exactly the right result you're looking for, and I'm quite happy with that now, so I'm going to save it. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to add a hand coloured effect to a monochrome image like this one. Now the first step is to create a new layer. So we just go to Layer, New, and I'm going to call this Face, because the trick is to work on a different section for each area you colour. Before I start painting in, I need to set the layer blend mode to colour, because this will tell Photoshop to use the colour information from this layer, but the detail and luminance information from the background. To select the colour, just double click in the foreground box to bring up the colour picker, and then scroll around until you find a suitable skin tone. Don't worry about the opacity too much, just make sure you get the right colour. When you've got it, just click OK, and the brush tool is already selected, but I need to zoom in a bit so I can see what I'm working on. And just paint in. As you can see, we still see the details of the face, but the colour's going in nicely. Now obviously this is going to take a little while, so I'm going to come back to you when I've done a little bit more. I'm going to select some different colours to do the dress as well. You can see that I've created layers for different aspects of the image that I've coloured. For example, I've given the cheeks and lips a little more rosiness, but it's all looking a little bit too vibrant, and we can adjust this using the opacity of each layer. So I'm just going to take the cheeks down a bit, take the face down a little bit, and just work on all the layers until you're happy that you've got the final effect that you're looking for. Still need to reduce the lip and cheek colour a little bit more there. It's surprising how little colour you really need in these images. Just keep playing around until you've got the result that you're happy with. There we go, I think that works rather well. This image has faded quite a bit and it's lost some of its contrast, but it should be relatively easy to restore it using adjustment layers. The first adjustment layer I'm going to use is the levels adjustment layer. Now, looking at the RGB or the master layer, it's not too bad. I'm just going to bring that slider down to introduce some whites. And it's worth looking at each of the colours in turn and bringing those in to meet the histogram. Don't worry how it affects the colour initially, because you're going to address them all and eventually it should become neutral. So there's a bit more contrast there already. And just bring the blue in. Okay, that's looking quite a bit better, although I seem to have lost a little bit of the highlight, so I'm just going to bring that out. This image still needs a bit more contrast, so I'm going to use a curves adjustment layer to sort that out. So just go to New Adjustment Layer, Curves, and then if I pull the shadow end down, it will just darken the shadows a little bit. I'm going to brighten the mid-tones a little bit. I don't really want to do too much with the highlights because some of them are already quite bright, but you can just tweak the curve. Usually a shallow S shape works very well until you get just the result you're looking for. If you want, you can also revisit the levels just to change the effect a little bit, but I think you'll agree that's looking a lot better now.